All right, let's get right to it. Everyone's seen a dozen AI trading tools, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're actually looking at the core problem that's holding back AI in every single high-stakes industry, and that problem is trust. How do you govern an AI when one mistake could be, well, catastrophic? That is the real challenge in finance right now.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll tackle that elephant in the room, AI hallucinations. Then, we'll look at a proposed governance framework and see how it works in action with a system called CipherHawk. We'll dig into how it sees the market, and that's going to lead us to what I believe is the real story here, what the actual product is.
Okay, Section 1. Before we can even begin to talk about solutions, we have to be brutally honest about the problem. And with AI and finance, the fundamental issue isn't capability, it's all about reliability.
This is the question every CTO, every portfolio manager should be asking themselves. We have all this incredible power with modern LLMs, so why have we seen some kind of trading GPT just completely dominate the markets? What's the holdup?
Well, the answer really just boils down to risk. Simple as that. In an environment like trading, a single confident-sounding hallucination from an AI isn't just some small error. It's a catastrophic failure. One bad trade, based on one piece of faulty AI output, could literally wipe out an entire year of gains. So the problem isn't that the AI isn't smart enough, it's that we can't truly trust it.
And look, this isn't just some philosophical hand-wringing. It's a known, hard-coded technical limitation of the architecture. What you're looking at here is pretty simple. The longer an AI session runs, the more tokens it has to process, the more its performance degrades. It literally gets worse over time. Once you get past a certain point, you enter this high-risk zone where context starts to drift and hallucinations become almost inevitable. This right here is the root technical hurdle for using a single, monolithic AI for any critical task.
So if a single big AI is inherently flawed for this kind of job, the next logical question is, well, how do you architect a solution around that flaw? And that brings us to a totally different approach, a dedicated framework for AI governance. So there's this company, QuantumEdge Dynamics, and they're proposing a real shift in perspective. Instead of trying to build one single, perfect, all-knowing AI, they're focused on the bigger problem, building a governance layer that can manage a whole committee of specialized AIs. Now, the heart of their architecture is something they call an AI service bus. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like a board of directors for AIs. It's a system that orchestrates multiple different AI agents, gives them all the same problem, and then forces them to reach a consensus before any action is ever taken. It's basically a framework of checks and balances, but for machine intelligence. Let's just walk through how this works. A request comes into the service bus. The bus then shoots that request out to multiple parallel AI engines to analyze. Then a central scoring layer looks at all their outputs, and a decision only gets executed if it meets a specific consensus and confidence threshold. This design doesn't just reduce the chance of errors, it actually architects fault tolerance right into the system from the ground up.
Okay, so that's the theory. Sounds good, right? But the real question for any investor or any CTO is always, does it actually work in a live environment? This is where CipherHawk comes in. And it's really important to understand that CipherHawk isn't the final product here. Think of it as the proof of concept for this whole underlying governance infrastructure.
So if you look at the CipherHawk fact sheet, the first thing that really jumps out is the mission statement. It says to interpret market structure, not to predict, but to understand. Now, for anyone out there who's ever built quant models, you know this is a huge philosophical shift. It's moving away from just trying to predict the future and towards systematically interpreting the present.
And for anyone in institutional finance, this is the number that matters. A live sim Sharpe ratio north of 2 is frankly exceptional. It doesn't just mean it's profitable, it indicates really strong, consistent risk-adjusted performance. This is the tangible result you get from a well-designed governance layer. And what's crucial is that this performance isn't coming out of some mysterious black box. It's the direct result of that consensus model we just talked about. The system has 3 distinct analytical layers: macroeconomic, sentiment, and structural, and it requires them to agree before it pulls the trigger. This creates an intelligence core that's both diversified and adaptive.
So let's dig into that third layer for a second, the structural layer, because this is where the approach gets really interesting. This is a move that goes way beyond just simple data crunching.
This quote really nails the core idea.
Traditional quant models, They rely on hundreds of hand-coded, often really brittle technical features. A structural, vision-based model, on the other hand, is designed to learn the emergent patterns in the price action itself. A lot like how a seasoned human chartist would.
So what's the actual difference in practice? Well, a purely numerical AI just sees a stream of data points. It's fast, yeah, but it can be easily faked out by noise. A structural AI, though, is trained to see the entire story of the chart, the patterns, the formations. It's focused on understanding the why behind a market move, not just the what, and that leads to much more robust decision-making.
And this is where it all comes together. This is the discipline that's enforced by that governance model. A trade is only made when the structural analysis, the market sentiment, and all the risk parameters line up to tell a single, coherent story. This multimodal consensus is the system's primary defense against the kind of catastrophic errors that a single rogue AI is so prone to making.
Which brings us to our final and, I think, most critical point. If you take just one thing away from this whole analysis, it should be this: the trading bot isn't the real product. The key insight here is that CipherHawk, with all of its impressive performance, is really just a high-stakes demo. It's the proof of concept for a much, much larger play, a licensable, auditable, and truly fault-tolerant AI governance platform designed for the enterprise.
This infrastructure diagram, this really reveals the true scope of what they're building. The entire workflow, from data coming in to the multi-agent intelligence core, all the way to the execution engine, is designed as a single, self-contained, licensable, safe AI infrastructure.
So the investment thesis becomes pretty clear. If you can prove this governance layer works in the crazy adversarial environment of financial markets, you can deploy it almost anywhere else. Think about regulatory compliance, high-stakes medical diagnostics, autonomous logistics, any mission-critical field where AI failure is simply not an option. And the company's own roadmap confirms this exact strategy. The end goal here isn't a slightly better CipherHawk. It's the full deployment of QuantumEdge, a global multi-AI ecosystem. They are explicitly signaling that they're moving from a prototype to a fully licensable operational platform.
So let's just leave it with this question. The real breakthrough being presented here isn't just a better way to trade, it's a potential framework for taming AI itself. I mean, if you can build a verifiable safety and governance layer for AI in the absolute chaos of financial markets, what other critical enterprise systems can you finally secure and automate with confidence?